Did Biden fund anti-Netanyahu protests, or worse? A new House memo says US taxpayer dollars were funneled through NGOs to fuel unrest in Israel, and may have even reached Hamas-linked groups. Netanyahu calls it a foreign-backed plot to bring him down. The agency calls it civil society support. But the documents? They tell another story. A new memo from the House Judiciary Committee has sparked renewed scrutiny over the Biden-Harris administration's handling of foreign aid, alleging that US taxpayer money may have inadvertently supported protest movements in Israel aimed at destabilising Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Titled, "The Biden-Harris Administration's Funding of Anti-Netanyahu Non-Governmental Organisations," the document, released by Chairman Jim Jordan, details what it describes as an ongoing investigation into the flow of federal funds through American and Israeli NGOs allegedly engaged in political activity. The probe was initiated on March 26, 2025, when Judiciary Chair Jordan and Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Brian Mast formally requested records from 6 NGOs suspected of receiving US support. These included Blue White Future, Movement for Quality Government in Israel, PEF Israel Endowment Funds, Jewish Communal Fund, Middle East Peace Dialogue Network, and Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. The committees received over 380 documents in response, which they say illustrate a pattern of questionable funding, flows, and potential violations of non-profit guidelines. At the heart of the committee's report is a claim that US funds, allocated through agencies such as USAID and the State Department, ultimately supported organizations involved in mass demonstrations against Netanyahu's controversial judicial reforms. Among the most prominent examples, Blue White Future is described by the committee as a radical anti-Netanyahu organization. The group reportedly received $18 million from PEF Israel Endowment Funds and $4 million from the Middle East Peace Dialogue Network. Investigators allege that some of these funds may have originated from US federal grants, passed through intermediary organizations. Movement for Quality Government in Israel received $42,000 in American taxpayer support for so-called civic activism training in high schools. The memo claims the organization played a leading role in coordinating anti-reform protests while allegedly advancing the curriculum critical of the Netanyahu government. PEF Israel Endowment Funds has distributed more than $884 million to Israeli organizations over time. Although not all recipients are politically active, investigators argue that the fungibility of money means federal funds could have indirectly fueled political activism. Jewish Communal Fund reportedly provided $42.8 million to protest-linked groups, especially Blue White Future and the Movement for Quality Government. While its connection to federal money remains less direct, the committee raised concerns about the possible commingling of funds. Middle East Peace Dialogue Network and Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, both US-based NGOs and federal grant recipients, are also flagged for allegedly supporting political organizing in Israel, potentially breaching US tax laws that prohibit political activities by non-profits abroad. The memo raises sharp questions about how US aid is monitored once it passes through layers of NGO networks. Investigators argue that many of the flagged organizations may have acted outside their approved missions or used funds in ways that amount to foreign political interference. Further legal concerns center on potential breaches of US tax law, which restricts non-profit groups from engaging in partisan activities, particularly in foreign democracies. In one of the most explosive elements of the memo, the committee alleges that American taxpayer funds may have reached organizations with links to terrorist groups. Among them, Bioder Association for Environment and Development, a Gaza-based NGO, reportedly received approximately $900,000 in US aid since 2016. The organisation has known associations with Hamas leaders, according to the committee, and was awarded its latest grant just prior to the October 7, 2023, attacks in Israel. Other unnamed groups are cited in the memo as examples of long-standing gaps in US foreign aid oversight, where indirect support may have reached individuals or networks tied to extremism. The committee stopped short of alleging intent by the Biden administration, but described the funding lapses as serious and systemic. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party issued a sharply worded response to the findings, accusing the US of undermining a democratically elected government. In a social media post, Netanyahu said,
"As part of the attempt to topple the government, external pressures were applied, leading to deep social division, encouragement of refusal to serve, and a dangerous split within Israeli society. Even more severe, the document reveals that the same hand that funded political left-wing organizations in Israel also financed, through those same intermediary entities, organizations identified with Hamas and international campaigns against the State of Israel. What we have been saying for years is now being revealed to all. This is not a theory, not a conspiracy. It is a proven fact backed by official documents."
The statement further alleged that the funding contributed to a deep social rift within Israeli society and amounted to an attempt to destabilise the leadership of a stable right-wing government. The House Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees say the investigation is ongoing. They intend to expand their probe to additional NGOs and intermediaries suspected of funneling taxpayer money into politically charged or legally dubious activity. The US-Israel relationship has long been one of close strategic alignment, backed by decades of military, economic, and diplomatic cooperation. While America's financial support gives it considerable leverage, its influence over Israel's internal politics, especially elections, is a more complex and often contentious topic. There's no credible evidence that the US government has directly interfered in Israeli elections by backing political parties, altering votes, or manipulating outcomes. However, tensions have emerged around claims that American funding, often channeled through civil society grants, has at times supported groups critical of Israeli government policies. While the recent report raised serious questions, it focused on broader support for civil society rather than explicit election meddling. The matter remains under investigation. US presidents have also made high-profile visits or statements during Israeli campaigns, which some interpret as subtle messaging. But such moves fall under public diplomacy rather than covert interference. Ultimately, while political friction over US influence persists, clear-cut cases of election manipulation remain unproven, highlighting the fine line between soft power and sovereignty.